It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, I did something to my left eye while I was watching Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania over the weekend, and it is a horror show right now, so there will be no me on camera today. It instead will be Elden Ring gameplay that I captured. Little extra added bonus Elden Ring gameplay. I thought, what the heck? This is manly, right? Elden Ring with my Radon cosplay. That's what I'm calling the stuff I'm wearing. I love it because it's ridiculous. Radon is one of my favorite fights in the whole freaking game just because it's dumb, and I'm going to turn the sound down a little bit more so it doesn't clash. Okay, there we go. Way down. There will be a few you have dieds here. I didn't suck too bad, but I did take some stupid risks. So you'll see it. There's no spoilers in this gameplay. Other than the location of one item, but is that a spoiler or a help? I don't know. There's no major story spoilers. So, yes, as I said, I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp over the weekend. I don't know what the reviews were talking about other than a few places where the dialogue was clunky because they were being a little too true to comic book moments. I really enjoyed it. It was silly fun, but that doesn't mean there weren't some really good lessons regarding what it means to be a man. And one, I wanted to point out, this is not a spoiler for the movie. No spoilers for games, no spoilers for movies. This is just one point. I will not talk about what it is. But the point was made that if you miss major events in someone's life, whether it be a graduation or a birthday that was very important to them or anything that you couldn't make because reasons, don't expect them to understand. Actively make it up to them somehow. And this is one of those things that, I love my superheroes, but this is one of those things that I actually think really needed exploration in a superhero property because of this sort of internalized, I'm going to be very careful on my word choices here. Internalized disposability that has a knock-on effect in terms of men are defined by their jobs. They have to work. They put that over, family stuff. And there are really good reasons for that, but nobody especially likes it. And I do think that there has been a re-examination of, this is a good fight. I did this in one. I'm very excited. I did this one in one. But there's been a re-examination of this idea that a man's primary purpose or primary value is as a resource provider, a breadwinner, and everything else takes second place to that. I was reminded of that on Twitter also over the weekend because I put up a thing about, I don't know if anybody saw the Don Lemon kerfuffle where he said Nikki Haley was not in her prime when Nikki Haley's in, I don't know, her late 40s, mid 50s, something like that. And he took a lot of crap both internally and externally. Well deserved, but I kind of thought, okay, he was the one who said it, but he's not the only one who thinks that women are just done when we hit 50. But men, Pedro Pascal's playing like a 54-year-old in The Last of Us, and he's considered like Daddy Beefcake kind of thing, right? And the responses I got to it by saying, let's not focus on Don Lemon. Let's talk about why that's such a pervasive attitude. And the responses I got were, well, women can't have children past, early to mid 40s, but men can continue to make money well into their 50s, and that's men's prime earning potential. Yeah. Ask any guy who, gets fired in their 50s or mid to late 40s, how that goes, not so much. But I'm just like, yikes! Okay, again, let's not pick on the people that have this idea. Let's examine the idea that men are only worth how much money they can make. It's not so. It's absolutely not so. And you see all the miserable rich men with multiple failed marriages that need attention from strangers. It's not a guaranteed pathway to happiness by any stretch of the imagination. You know, I can rack them off. Bill Gates screwed up his marriage being too close to Jeffrey Epstein. Yikes. You know, Jeff Bezos blew up his marriage. And, you know, a failed marriage doesn't mean it's all one person. But, you know, Jeff Bezos got caught with a mistress. Trump, multiple divorces, clearly not a happy person. Elon Musk. Need we say more? Yeah. It's not about the money. Yeah, I got that guy in one. See, it's about the time you put in. And that, I think, is something that a lot of guys probably realize too late, or they realize the hard way. And it's no one's fault. There are, excuse my grammar, a lot of messages aimed at men. Some of them come from women. I apologize, this lengthy map thing. I was trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. But there are a lot of messages aimed at men that you are defined by your wallet, by your pocketbook. Enough bad experiences, especially in online dating, can really hammer the point home. But it's not always so. I know a lot of guys who are very fulfilled in life. They don't make a ton of money. They get by. But it's about being there in what ways they can. And that doesn't mean being there for everything. Don't get me wrong. You don't have to totally sacrifice a career to put in quality time. And I mean, the thing, going back to Ant-Man, you know, going back to Scott Lang, he was like original best dad, not great person, but best dad in the MCU. All his good choices are made in, you know, because of his consideration for his daughter Cassie. Quantumania continues that in rather spectacular fashion. And he doesn't get it perfect, which is so awesome, but he puts in the effort. And I thought that was such a great message for people trying to figure out life. And I desperately want more superhero content that actually gives life messages that, you know, nothing's 100%. There are no guarantees. But they're good tips for forming relationships with quality people, both friends and romantically. And I choose those words very carefully because, you know, Kang the Conqueror's the villain. That is not a spoiler. That is all through the marketing. Kang the Conqueror is the villain in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. And the thing I think is so great about Kang for our time is that this is one of the dumber deaths coming up, by the way, in this gameplay footage, but Kang starts off, and this is comic book canon, so I have no idea whether they're going to keep it in the MCU, but it seems they're moving towards this. Kang actually started off with good intentions. He meant well. He actually has, in some ways, somewhat noble aspirations. And yeah, this is a stupid death coming up where I bit off more than I can chew. Much like Kang. And so Kang, his descent into evil, self-aware evil, is that he thinks in ends justify the means ways. And one of the things he requires, because of his ends justify the means thinking, there's a stupid death, is he needs way too much control, an unhealthy level of control. And I'm going to talk more about this on Wellness Wednesday, because too much control, needing too much control, is the problem of this age. I don't know if they intended to craft Kang the Conqueror for this message, but it is so timely. When you hold on too tight, when you try to have too much control over too many things, when you think you need complete domination, when you need to conquer to feel like you have things under control, you don't tend to do good person things. And I think it's so brilliant because that ties into the make sure you put in the time, even if you can't make everything. You know, instead of feeling like everything is zero sum, that you have to make everything, you have to be letter perfect, and if you can't, just, oh my God, can't deal. That's Kang, right? Scott Lang, I didn't think these two would be such good foils for each other, but, you know, Scott Lang, he's a screw up. And he's learned over multiple movies that it's okay if you screw up. It's okay if you're not always there. As long as, one, when you are there, you are actually present, like checked in, tuned in, connecting, relating. And I love cheesing these giant lobsters. But you are there, you are present, you are relating, you are emotionally connected. You tell the people around you that they matter to you. And this is not just romantic partners. No, this is your friends. This is your family. Tell people that they matter to you. There is no such thing as enough there. But also, if you do miss something, find a way to make it up. Not in kind, necessarily, right? Maybe sometimes, yeah. But find a way to put in the time and make people aware that you do care that you missed it, that it wasn't, you know, it wasn't okay by you. You don't expect them to just understand, and you make it up. And this is something that comic books don't do well. And so I was so thrilled with seeing it in a comic book movie, or a superhero movie at least, because of course comics got their start in the Ashes. See, Elden Ring Ashes, haha. Ashes of the Great Depression. And so a lot of people were just trying to get by, and there was a lot of sacrifice in that regard. There was also World War I and World War II, where people were away from each other for prolonged periods of time. And, you know, when Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman were created, we didn't know how badly that period was going to screw people up. And then, you know, we get into the 60s in the Silver Age, and there was a lot of displaced families for similar reasons. But I mean, these were the people who grew up in the Depression. And that's why there's so many stories of people living with their aunt and uncle in comics, because they sent kids, you know, who the parents couldn't afford to look after, or they needed to take jobs where they couldn't be proper parents. And so they sent them to live with other relatives, sometimes elderly ones, who could have the time, you know, and the finances mostly to look after a child or a teenager. That's where all this stuff came from. You know, Dick Grayson being Bruce Wayne's ward, you know, the ward, what is that? It's a foster kid, right? The world has changed a lot, and so I was glad to see a thoughtful re-examination of the tropes, because I do see a lot of guys who read a lot of comics get stuck in the fight. They get hung up on needing to fight the good fight, especially if they are likely to lose. I do not understand this, but, you know, I see a correlation. I'm not saying it's a causation to people who read a lot of comics and people who pick maybe not the smartest fights. And I get it based on the comics I've read. I actually, part of the reason I fell out of reading DC and Marvel comics is the number of times that the love interest or the friends or the butler or whatever was positioned as an antagonist to the hero because, you know, the hero was withdrawing from life increasingly into a mission and or violence and or an obsession. And instead of it being, these are people who care about them that don't like seeing them descend into isolation, it's treated like, oh, they just don't understand. They don't understand how important it is. That's not healthy. Because no matter how important what you do is, if it consumes you, that's a problem. That's what happened to Kang in the comics, that his mission became so important that he did increasingly evil, horrible, brutal things in service of it, and are arguing that the ends justify the means. And what superheroes show is that the ends don't justify the means. And there was a blip during the spec market where comics forgot that. And every so often it bubbles up in modern comics too. I read these stories like, oh God, this is like everything was a symbiote stories. It's not good. It's not a good message for life. It may be an exciting story, but it's not a good message for life. And that's why I make these videos. I'm not saying don't enjoy your stories. I'm not saying everything about comic stories is bad. I love comic book stories. I get very excited when the obscure characters I love are popping up increasingly in DC and Marvel movies and TV shows and stuff like that. But I look at it from the perspective of knowing what's actually healthy life skills and what they're putting into it for sort of artificial or ramped up drama that is a don't try this at home thing. And so that's why I made this video. And hopefully you enjoy this. And you can start today letting people know that you appreciate them more. This is why I want more stories of male friendships in comics, and, you know, different types of male friendships, and showing men expressing emotion for each other, showing each other that they care about each other, because this is something that needs to be modeled in the paradigm of sort of idealized masculinity so it can be normalized because it's necessary. I know so many guys who very much want that, but they don't know how. And when they've tried, they've been told by people in their lives, you know, they've been shamed by people in their lives, including the women in their lives. And that makes them think, because they have limited experience, that the whole world is like that. And so I want people to know that the whole world isn't like that. That's actually a good thing. And it may take you a while to figure out how to find the words, but it's completely worth learning, even if there's a few painful false starts, right? And don't listen to the critics. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is well worth seeing. It is a fun, silly movie. It is not Star Wars. It is more like Flash Gordon, but it is visually spectacular, but it's a light movie about family. If you go in expecting just, 2 hours and 20 minutes of fun, you won't be disappointed. It's silly. It's deliberately cheesy in places, and I really enjoyed it because everything can't be grimdark, right? All right. Oh, I didn't do the help support this channel thing because I got right into the Elden Ring gameplay. Okay. If you like this content, if you like this sort of stuff, if you like stuff that supports men navigating the world, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Apparently, Song assures me that this is pronounced Ko-fi, or something like that, .com/LeannaK. I think that's weird because it's buy someone a coffee, but Ko-fi.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching Manly Mondays.